Oh, you can get whiskey. Ricardo's
We
drinking
could have
right
done
now.
this with whiskey. I have good whiskey. I have Blanton's.
Welcome to the marketing trench. We're live, so now it has to be G-rated. Ricardo, talking about you. Hey, today Scott is on the road and visiting our guest,
Christopher Griffith.
Yes, Christopher Griffith, who is a former military, and that figures into what we're talking about today, which is cause marketing. So one of the things we've talked about in the past on this show is that it's one thing to sell a product or a service. It's another thing to tie it into something that really is meaningful and matters to you. And that's one way that you can differentiate yourself, how you can go from being one of many to one of one, is if you're standing for something more than just the product or service you're selling. And that's definitely Christopher's stories today. So we're going to talk about, how do you do that? How do you go from being one of many? How do you go from being another person selling a commodity product, loans, and differentiate yourself along the lines of being somebody who stands for a cause and sells to people who align with that cause. So that's at a high level what we're doing. Scott happens to actually be visiting with Christopher today, so we're very excited about this. And Scott, why don't you just introduce us really quickly to Christopher and toss the microphone over to Christopher and let him kind of give us some background.
Absolutely. So yeah, I wanted to do this because we talk in marketing a lot about it being more than just selling your product or service, and we talk about niche marketing all the time. Cause marketing is like niche marketing on steroids. So niche marketing, you kind of find this lane and you grab onto that lane and you really dig into it and you unpack it and you become a subject matter expert at this. In Christopher's case, his story is so fascinating. I've probably known you for about 3 years now, 3+ years. And he started putting videos on Facebook. And as we talk about video all the time, and we talk about when you're doing video, the first time I saw Chris, I felt like I completely knew him. And I walked up to him and I was like, I think the first thing I said, it was in Irvine. I was like, dude, I watched all your videos. I love your passion. You're crazy, but I love it. You're like kind of crazy. And he's just such a genuine and such a passionate person. And really what he did is he built a mortgage and I would almost say a home ownership community around veterans. And in the mortgage space especially, veterans are not treated very well. I would say in a lot of places in society, they're not treated as well as they should be. But in the mortgage industry specifically, because there are a lot of companies out there spending a lot of money just trying to churn veterans, and it was a bad situation. In our industry, they made some attempts to make it more difficult to take advantage of veterans financially. But what Chris really saw a need with a lack of education about homeownership, about financing, about building wealth, and having good conversations, having realistic conversations. And Chris, I kind of almost want you to start from the beginning, because you didn't, just like all things that I think are great, you don't seek them out, they find you. And Chris is very much a reluctant leader of this unbelievable community. But you didn't set out and say, I'm going to create a community for veterans. You tried to go to the communities that are already out there, right?
Yeah, so like the start of it, I would say the very beginning of it was I was active on Facebook. I got to a point in my career, I was doing pretty well, belly to belly agents, had been as a loan officer, not buying leads, but working the hard stuff, creating the stuff, doing it the hard way. Went well, and then got to a point to where I lost it one day, and it was like I told my wife, we were talking about today, it's like, I can't explain it. I got to spend 20 hours on Facebook today, honey. See you tonight. And she thought it was crazy. The market in Denver, I think, was like 16. It was slowing down then too. And so she'd come home to homeschool our daughters, and she has a degree in accounting and runs some businesses for us. And so I just, boom, all my time at Facebook, because I knew a lot of people in there. I saw a lot of what they were misunderstanding. I saw a lot of good, well-intentioned questions, even if they were poorly formed or weren't like exactly.
These are Facebook groups for veterans?
Yes, veterans in groups, veterans on, mainly in Facebook groups or on pages, or in videos or dialogue around videos, or just the bad marketing and then the questions on the marketing and then the marketers answering. Right? Marketing isn't targeting, y'all. That's what it is for most companies. It's a very pointed targeting, right? And there's a whole lot of weight and point to that target for the ones at the end of it, the receiving end of it, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I got frustrated with was people simply looking for information from people who should have very easily been able to give it, wouldn't. And they would give a little bit of information, but mainly a whole bunch of treble hooks, a little bit of information around it.
So the veterans would be asking questions, and it was like throwing chum into the water.
Yeah, it's like, oh, hey, I can help. Here's my phone number. Here's my website. Here's my business page. Here's a tattoo of me when I was 17-year-old learning how to be the best real estate agent ever. And you can tell because on my real estate card, this picture's been the same for the last 19 and a half years I've been in the biz. And as soon as they say biz, like, got them. Like, it was just a good Lord, and they think I'm a caricature.
Yeah. So you started getting involved in these groups. You started seeing these veterans that were asking questions at professional groups, trying to get a real answer, trying to get an answer from somebody who's not trying to sell them something. Like, I got questions.
Yeah, they have an incredibly difficult time doing it. And then even when you would try to help them, I think a lot of the times, like, you ever try to help someone drowning? When you need help, you're not the easiest to help. So it became a very difficult thing to do. How do I deliver information that's needed, right, to people who have want for it when there's a whole bunch of other idiots in the room and everyone else trying to be terrorists and turd heads to each other, which is basically what it's like when you get a bunch of vets together.
Okay.
Very lovingly, like we're family. He said, hey, vets, just so you know, like, knowing your audience, marketing at the root fundamental of it, he said, former military, if you're Marines here and you're watching this, let Dustin know what former Marine means to you, and then that'll let us round robin back to this later in the context of marketing and knowing your audience long term, because a good
once a Marine,
marketing brand finds someone forever. And yeah, that whole concept, but it's just a kind of a fun callback. But anyway, so there was a problem. I have a grievance to market.
Well, and you also kind of bring up another point with that, because we are not necessarily military, so we don't know the lingo. We don't know how military interact with each other. We don't know how they talk to each other. That is a community.
Harshly.
Right? Partially?
Harsh.
Oh, harshly.
Harshly.
Well, I would say the three of us are usually pretty harsh to each other, but it's military is way more harsh. I
got good at answering questions. Everyone could see that I cared. And a lot of people that watched, even through some of the harder stuff that I really screwed up on, because I'm not the nicest guy. You might not think it, but I can be pretty harsh.
You're not
like, yeah, everyone thinks I'm just this big cuddly teddy bear, but even at 142 and a half pounds, I can be pretty direct, it turns out. So I learned how to help people with what they were looking for in a difficult place to do it. That led to a lot of people coming to me, to the point to where I had zero desire to support them in a professional way. I didn't have the ability to with my scale of my mortgage company. There were too many questions. I knew the answers most of the time, and even if I didn't, I knew where to get to them, because that's what kind of led me to success, was not remembering, but knowing where to find it every freaking time. So I go there quick, right? Just run over and grab what you need. Got good at that, grew out of control, almost lost my family because Facebook. That sounds really lame.
I don't think so. I think a lot of people can resonate with that.
Way too much time on Facebook, and then some other platforms, but mainly all Facebook groups. And then it got to the point to where I had created a big network of people that I'd known over time that could help me facilitate problem solving, even if it was simply a conversation, a look over, an explanation around whatever, right? You saw it, you were a part of that. That's how we kind of came in contact. And I would tell them very explicitly what to do, what not to do, how to do it, how not to do it. If this happened, do this. If this doesn't happen, do this, right? Because I needed to make sure, and I'm sorry, that's me. But like at the end of the day, if they're getting someone that's trusting them to have an opportunity for a conversation, just a conversation, even if it's just a genuine help, what's a relationship that you offer value to that everyone else missed on, that helps them get where they want to go, even if it doesn't benefit you profiting then? If you're in this business for the long game, you want to find those every second of the day. Those are the ones you want to find, right? In my mind. So that's what we became. We became a conduit of information. We became a vendor of information.
So you saw a lot of talk, but not a lot of answers. And you saw veterans, you could see that they weren't getting the whole answer, because like you said, here's my email, here's my phone number, just give me a call. They just wanted to do business with them. They didn't really care about answering their question. these are other groups, right?
I won't say they all didn't care. Some of them cared and they just suck at it. That was my case.
Okay.
So it's not a care thing always. It's a capacity, it's ability. Like I have 3 daughters and a wife, so I had to work harder. Oh, still, like it's a half and half. But either way, yeah.
But you saw problems with the conversations that were happening in those groups, and you thought it could be done a better way.
I did. I thought that a lot of groups, like all of the groups that I'm in a lot of groups, and you know my story, like the flower groups, the lizard groups, the snake bite groups. Out of all the groups I know, I've been in a lot. I've been kicked out of even more. Some earned, some not. Some odd. The flower group boot,
You got kicked out of a flower group?
You know that story already. No,
I'm not sure if I did.
I got some of those dahlias blooming outside. I'll tell you over a dahlia and a beer later tonight.
How do you get kicked out of a flower group?
It got too many likes and engagements, and the group was a corporate group. They didn't like when repetition of posts that were not their own, even though it was not a corporate label group. It was under an account called Susie Harrison /Harvestics.
Okay, so actually, that's probably an important story.
It is
because the founders neighborhood. Because of the founders of some of those groups created that group to be.
And it wasn't a real person. It was an avatar of a person. It was supposed to act like a person, but wasn't. And I got booted because I had too much engagement.
Because
you were building something wrong, and when questions come out, not too easy. Boo.
Okay, so they built that thing to grow their business. You were just in there having a good time building a community inside their community.
My aunts and a whole bunch of people are in that group, and so we all share flowers and stuff. And
so back to veterans.
So there's veterans in that group too. So hilarious. In Vet VA one time, someone goes, "Oh my gosh, you're the dude in this flower group." and Vet VA, which at that point was not massive. We weren't assuming about massive. But we had 30,000 people. The flower group's like 1,200 people.
Oh, you got 38,000 people
now. Yeah. It's
so
pretty quick.
All right, we jumped ahead a little bit. I want to back up a couple of steps. So you were in these groups. So the point that I wanted to make is that particular flower group was created by an avatar by a company, and they were doing it to build their business. Right. And so if something went wrong, they booted you out. All you were doing was genuinely sharing your love for flowers and commenting, and you were engaging. And so you started building a community around yourself because you were a real person, being genuine and being transparent. And you just thought you were having a good time in the flower group.
Yeah, not in a weird way like the Stewie from Saturday
No, it's
Night
weird.
Live.
Trust me.
Well, maybe like weird. I wasn't being like
right. No, you were being
normal. I would share a flower. People ask questions, and I'd answer it.
Yeah.
So don't make it weird, y'all. It wasn't like I shared a picture of a flower, 1,000-something people like it, 800 people something comment on it. They mute me. I ask if I did something wrong. They boot me. And I'm like, well, that's out of all 100 boots. It's like, you know what? I officially don't have feelings anymore. Well, no, that was a viciously drug out of a flower group for a pretty dahlia. You kind of, nothing hurts after that, Scott.
So I remember when Facebook was born, and I remember
wait, hold on. Scott, you're just blowing right. Where are we right now?
No, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I should have warned you that this is exactly how this conversation is going to go.
I feel like I've been slipped a roofie and taken to the poppy fields. Looking around like, where
am I? There. I forgot to warn you.
Where am I right now?
The story is the point. Follow us here. So we haven't even started drinking yet, even though Ricardo has. So he's probably keeping up. So I remember when groups came out, and I remember marketing people would say, start a group so that you can control the conversation, and then you own the conversation and you own everybody in the group, and you can generate a lot of business out of it. And I think that's what Chris got sucked into in the flower group. But there were also some veteran groups out there that kind of had the same feel. And when you saw that it was, hey, this is not as committed to the cause as you think it should be, and you kind of approached them and said, hey, listen, I think there's ways to make this community better.
Yes, in multiple different places I have offered help, and a lot of really healthy, good ways too. Like just on certain things when they break down, because I see whatever, or I know the people, and I've been around for a while, and they know me, right? But some places worked, some places didn't, some places different grievance errors, not all around community like we're talking specifically right now. Some more specific around product or action around certain things too. But specifically, Dustin, you're asking for the tie over. It's in what does it take for a community of people to really exist and engage in a way that you as a dirty capitalist might hopefully profit from if you don't suck, if you don't treat them poorly, if you don't do something weird, right? Or if you don't do something unnatural. As a veteran, you know the one thing I'm really good at? Going, wait a gosh dang minute. You know what? Honey, get your purse. Come here. Yeah, let's go. And no, it's, let's have that sixth sense of like, okay, something's funky's going
Something's
on
not
here.
right.
Right. There's fixing to be a working party, y'all. I can feel it. Vets will know that joke if they're listening. I see y'all straight faced here, but it's a sixth sense of knowing when something's off, when something's not real or true or intentful or authentic around what's being claimed. And if you're there telling someone you can help, well, what does that look like? Do your actions state that, or is that just your pickup line at the bar? Are you trying to take them from the line outside the bar directly to your car? Because it's not really how, maybe Quicken's like that. Quicken will come up to you in the line to get in the bar and be like, hey, you get in the van?
Well, Quicken
Rocket?
Yeah, Quicken is like
I'm kidding.
Quicken is like all of the displays in the checkout line of the grocery store. Like they want you to notice it and do it like it's an impulse buy. That's what Quicken is an
I
impulse
thought they
buy.
missed it, especially with the big beefy dude that all the chicks like. Why not just go with Quickie? Like I feel like in the modern day marketing, like Quickie.
All right, now we've totally spun
I know,
out of
now we're out of
control, so
control.
let's
But I'm
go
just saying,
back.
marketing can be anything you want it can be, and it can purpose towards anything you want it. For community's sake, though, if you're going to grow and build a community, what it looks like, what it does, why it exists, what it doesn't allow for, and what it does, it better, if it's a community of humans, be something similar to what it takes for a community of humans to exist in mutually, normally. And that's even different.
So as a veteran and as being savvy and as being a part of all of these Facebook groups, you recognize that there was definitely a need for this kind of community because questions were being asked and there were answers that were being given, but they may not, it just didn't feel right, right? So your spidey senses were going off and you're like, this isn't as good of an experience as it could be for either party, probably for either the people in the community and for the people that it was trying to serve. So what was it like? What was the straw that broke the camel's back that you said, I'm going to start a Facebook group?
There were a few other groups that already had
Answer
legs
last.
up. There were a few other groups that already had legs up on it. There were, I think a lot of companies that try to do things are good. It's good to try to do things. Even if you suck at them for a long time, longer than you should, it's good to try to do things. Whatever. I don't hate anybody. I hate mayonnaise. Whatever. Sin. Those two things. But there were some other places trying to do it, and I made suggestions because I was already part of those places internally, not in a rough way externally. And continually there was breakdown, a lack of willing to accept, and then some major breakdown around certain things that I felt were kind of, I don't want to go into them too much. I guess I would say, well, you said there were hard breakdowns where they were making choices and using their
Power,
good knowledge, power, and position to do things that ethically, in my opinion, especially in the course, they should get punched in the mouth. And honestly, they just suck. I don't care how good you are. If you suck as a person and you're not going to make a good choice, your brain sucks. It's worthless. It's useless, just in case you're watching or y'all are watching. I haven't forgotten about you. You haven't heard me in about a year. Because I've been putting my data together. Data.
no beefs.
Sorry. No beef. No beef. Well, no Whiskey Creek cattle discussion. But for real.
I appreciate, though, that you came into it with a reform mindset first, right? It wasn't like, hey, I'm just going to start my own thing because everything sucks. You came out of
about something without a solution is not an option.
Yeah. So at what point did you strike out then on your own because you realized, hey, look, this reform stuff isn't working and like what I have to offer or what I think should be done is so distinct. And then what did that initial striking out on your own look like? Did you invite a bunch of people or how did you get it going? What was the seed?
I invited my grandma. She was my second person I added, my Mimi.
That's actually a funny story. Well, it's part of
significant to the foundation.
It's very significant to the foundation.
We have two rules. One of them was because of her. She was the second member I added. And if you break that rule, I love her more than I love you. So get your stuff. Get out of here.
So rule number one is no cussing in this group. And And it's because his Mimi, his grandma, it was the second person in the group. So at the very beginning, and this was one of the things that I thought was so funny, is they would come in and it would always say the first rule is no cussing. My grandma, my Mimi's in here, and so don't offend her. And, and that doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it's foundational to the environment that Chris created in this group.
It's significant in more ways than that. Look, if veterans appreciate one thing, if you're going to remove their ability to say some stuff that's really common in their language anyways, there better be a good reason. Tell them, hey, look, Facebook's going to be nuking, veteran groups, and they don't like it when they cuss, and they're not going to show us or each other our questions if you cuss a whole bunch and make each other mad. They're not going to be all about the emotional stuff. If my grandma's standing around and you come over as a vet, you're probably going to be a lot less likely to drop the F-bomb looking her in the eye beside me. And so I gave them a visual, one, two. And two, then the second significant fact, whether it was my grandmother, DC Terry, or one of the 10,000 vets that would never be comfortable in telling someone else this, it's just complex stuff. It's hard stuff. It's stuff we're not comfortable with. It's stuff that every one of you, I don't care if you've been doing it for 20 years, when you become a borrower, you get emotional.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big deal.
I've seen professional loan officers and real estate agents try to buy a house and they forget everything they ever knew.
Encountering ignorance as a grown-up on a subject you think you ought to know a lot about, and having to be willing to submit that ignorance out there for people to help inform and educate, you better have some trust there, and you better have some tact there, and you better have at least a place established where people feel comfortable, or you'll never get their questions. Right? And so we created that atmosphere with a lot of different small fundamental things. It really, guys, it ain't rocket surgery. It's like, be kind, say nice things. You ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. Mimi taught me that too. Mom, my dad, the old school rules.
So there's another thing that's really significant about Chris's group is it is a private group. So like you can only know somebody or you can only be invited into this group. And how many people are in the group right now?
38,000? Just over 38,500. And we created the group on I created it in May 14, 2019. So a little over 2 years ago. We'd never done the whole invite your friends. We don't run ads. We don't do any of that nonsense. People talk about it if it works and helps them out. They share it with people, and that's it.
So there are some loan officers driving people there, right? But it's a lot of it is veterans telling other veterans that this group exists.
Yeah, I would say there are some loan officers, and even loan officers that aren't there because they know our rule number 2 is no solicitation. There's no, oh yeah, talk to so-and-so over here. Or if someone comes in and says, hey, where can I find? It's like, no, we're not a referral groups. And here's what that means. We're not going to handle that question. Go to one of your billion other groups and find some bad referral. Here's how it works here. Ask your questions, search them out. Here's who our people are answering your questions. This is what that certification process looks like. If you have a very specific question, you need a dialogue. Here's how you can get in touch with them. If you must work with them, because that's why we created this. If you must work with them, you can, but now we have a BTB process to monitor all of their data, public data that doesn't discern the individual, but the characteristics of the service and the professional providing it, right? And to make sure, because if we were going to give them a means to get a professional service, even if it was because of affiliation, we were going to make sure. Trust but verify is our slogan, and it's built on the concept of inspect, don't expect, because experts break down, right? The best of the best of the best, sir, they break down. And so
let me break this down a little bit more. So Chris said something else that was really important, and talked a little fast, so I want to make sure we dial into this.
Well, you said less than 20 minutes. I was trying to get through the whole point, so it wasn't
the whole point in less than 20 minutes. There's no solicitation in this group.
None.
So you're not allowed to. So there's 2 parts to this group, right? Initially, you had a couple of people that were moderating and answering the questions. But then what Chris did, what I thought was amazing, is, and again, towards his effort to create an elevated experience for, quite frankly, not only the veteran, but for the loan officer as well, is he created a certification process for any moderators that wanted to be in that group. Those moderators are all loan officers that want to specialize in VA loans.
Loan officers, real estate agents, underwriters, processors, account executives.
That's what it's evolved into, right? Or was it always that?
No, it was never intention to give them a way to get to a consumer. It was, we were answering questions, and it was people
It was a support
all
group.
over to answer questions only without propositioning people. So that's all it was.
Right.
And so after a while, the veterans began to like, well, no, we want to work with these people. And so the nature of being there as a professional is if you were there, then you were vetted. Now I had a whole bunch of people that I didn't know enough about that would never really ask a question. They were just flies on the wall. And so it was like, okay, we have to vet or ensure that they have merit to be here, right? And so what does that look like? And so we began to create a fundamental process. What I meant to say on the solicitation piece is professionals do trust their veteran consumers to come over there, even if it's just as an outlet to ask questions too when they're not around, because they won't be propositioned in any way, shape, or form. We don't even allow the question of searching for. We deal with that in a separate book. But the process that we handle is not only a theory-based, knowledge-based education, it's a reality-based education. And not only is it the factual, well source of information, things like the VA handbook, with all of its other kind of modifiers or sources, like you have the selling guides, you have the modifiers of the circulars or the state overlays, lender overlays, some different real estate stuff. So there's all sorts of things like that are either a well source, a minor source, or a modifier, and they all work in tandem together, right? And so the nature of the education is not only theory-based, it's reality-based in the sense of if you can't close 10,000 VA loans a year and become the dude that's out there with all of the VA t-shirts, if you can't become that guy by closing 10,000 a year, but you can handle 40,000 questions from either further spread apart, you get a lot of experience. And people that really want to know and become experts, not only from the theory-based knowledge, but from the actual stuff, then get another layer of education too. And it's all organized, right? You've kind of heard a lot about it. But the approach, there's a lot of other education, as we call it, that we go through outside of just the knowledge.
This is so complex. It feels like we're going inside baseball, but a lot. There's some really important things that trickle out of this, and again, you didn't set out to do this, but every step of the way when you encountered a scale issue. Like there's more veterans asking questions, so we need to get more people in there. When we get more people in there to answer those questions, inevitably, it's difficult to know.
Make sure they can.
It's difficult to know whether they can. And VA loans, more than any other loan, VA loans are a lot of this. Call the VA center. Is it good for the vet? Okay, it's a gray area. Let's go ahead and do that. It's not black and white like a lot of other loans. There's a lot of compensating factors, a lot of things to consider, a lot of things you can't just look up. There's a lot of moving parts. And if you're passionate about finding a solution, you can probably find a solution. If you can, there are some crazy, crazy stories. So at the same time, you have that much flexibility with this product. You also have the ability to have a high degree of ignorance.
With great power comes
great responsibility. but you also have the ability to have a lot of ignorance, and I feel like that's what happens in a lot of these veteran-focused things. Is they'll say we will only help veterans that fit in this box, when the actual resources available to a veteran is this much. But they're dealing with this, your vetted VAs.
And that's the frustrating part, right? There's a lot of these well-positioned
vetted VAs, your Veterans United.
VA, end-all, be-all, everything of companies do little bitty box.
Right, they do a little. So Chris created two communities, basically. He created a community where veterans that had questions about housing and mortgages could feel safe because they weren't being solicited. There was thoughtful questions. Maybe not initially. The questions were not always thoughtful, well thought out. So then Chris saw a need to create accountability for the people that were answering the questions. So he created an entire testing regimen around anybody that came into that group that would be, we'll call them a moderator, right?
Nathan at this point has come on scene because I started the group. And then there was a while we were operating and handling questions and stuff. And then along come Nathan Nottingham. I'll call him Tonto because it's every morning. It's 4 a.m. for him in Washington, right? And I'm like, morning, Nathan.
Nathan is the secret sauce.
Go get your donkey. We got windmills to chase, little buddy. He's trying to wake up. But he comes along and he's has a great, it's true, ask him. he has a great mind for, I'm just being oppositional for me, which is good. So we developed first like, okay, if we're going to test, what does that look like? How are we going to test? I've gone through and looked at everyone else's testing before, and I hate testing because any test that provides the opportunity for a perfect solution every time perfectly fails that student every time, right? I didn't like the nature of how testing worked and what it taught. It taught regurgitation, which is useless. I wanted to teach them fundamentally how to learn differently, how to find information, ensure it, right? Yeah. And so we create testing. Yes, sorry, back to that point. We create testing, and that testing is kind of different.
It's way different. It's specifically designed to have a high failure rate, but it's not designed to pass the test. It's designed to learn how to take the test, right? So it's learn how to look up your guidelines. So what Chris did is he made sure that the veteran community that trusted that somebody trusted this community enough to introduce them to this group, because you can't stumble on this group. It's a private group. Like, you have to know somebody that sends you to this group. And I keep saying that because that to me is kind of the part of this that really blows my mind, is how huge this has become by word of mouth and by community. And I think that's the cause part of this that is so emotional. There's so much emotion and there's so much passion behind this movement that you've created, that it's not a business strategy. It's not a marketing strategy. It is truly a committee or a community that was born out of something that you were super, super passionate about. So today, less than 2 years later, how many moderators or how many loan officers, how many professionals do you have in there that have been through the testing?
Total professionals through and in testing right now, I think we're around probably 140.
140.
But not all of them are consumer direct moderators too, right? And when I say consumer direct, what I'm saying is the person that would be an individual looking from a user level of the questions that they're asking, right? A consumer of a thing, not a professional who would have fundamentally a different perspective on that matter, right? So we have the professionals that face directly the audience of consumer type people that have the perspective of that, and that's migrating. If you looked in that group, the knowledge level of the veteran is getting ridiculous, right? We have about, I would say 75% of those there are purposed outwardly, because that battle line, like just veterans, if you're watching us, y'all are like charging at us from here, and we're like, it's a lot. There's a lot of questions, a lot of comments, engagements. Like, it's so much to handle properly too, and not short stroke like you get everywhere else. It takes time. And then the other side of it, the back layer that they don't see, the back office or the back support, if you will, the POGs, right? Beans, Band-Aids, bullets kind of supply piece, is you have underwriters, processors, account executives, real estate agents that y'all face outward towards y'all too. But all sorts of different layers of conduits of professionals that are all in different places, all independent companies, different, whatever. I don't care where you come from. Have a willing heart and be different and get ready. They all get the same message, and they do. And what makes that unique is then you have a conduit of support that, even though everyone's doing their own thing, they're united to a purpose and a reason that's different. And here it's to solve a problem, provide a better conduit of education than anyone else is. Yeah.
I guess part of my point on some of this stuff is, Chris did not create an open door policy where anybody can come in. He made it extremely difficult to be a part of this group, like extremely difficult. Like, you have to, if there isn't something else driving you, you're not doing this for the money, because there's no guarantee. You're not even allowed to sell. But he's got 140 something people, and I want to talk in a second about what this is turning into, because it's become so much more than this. Initially, it was loan officers answering questions about loans. Now it's processors. It's actually operational people. It's actually lenders that are getting involved and putting their operational people through this testing so that they can be a part of this group, so that when the loan officer submits that loan to the lender, their operations side has the same focus and the same passion and their same commitment to this community as the very frontline people who are answering the questions for the veteran. And that, I mean, this is, there are so many people passionate and focused on this thing, and that does not happen without that cause, without that passion around that cause. But he's pivoted this thing just to give somebody, and I don't like to focus on this stuff, but everybody wants to hear about success. You kept track of how many veterans you were able to get into homes or do loans for in 2020 from out of this group.
So we have total numbers. Right? We have total numbers of total reach of our moderators, which is about half of what we have now, right? The problem is we don't have exact numbers. So I try to stay away from everything. What we stick to is our total reach as a community right now. And of that, we think around, everyone was busy. You know what happens when you're busy and up? Sometimes your logbook looks like crap, right? And so we didn't have the systems connected, which we do now.
You're building this thing from the ground.
So I'd say 30 to 50, maybe, and I think healthier than that, but 30 to 50% probably of total reported number coming specifically, as it turned out, from our community, which was a huge surprise. And that was, I think we ran like 270 million last year in total, loan volume of people that ended up choosing and working through, or what moderators did.
How many transactions?
VA specific loans.
How many transactions do you think that breaks down to?
Well, and I think it's right at like 600 or something. And don't quote me on that. I need to talk to Nathan on final numbers on that.
If it was 100, it would be
there's a lot of the people that we have. Here's another thing too. I didn't find just like slummy people and make them because I'm awesome. It wasn't like that at all. I took really good people and I showed them, because I was like, I guess, humble enough to get an opportunity to have the audience with them. I showed them a couple fundamental ways they could improve. And they were already great people and a lot of the best minds out there. And they hate the test more than anybody, and they love the test more than anybody too, right? But a lot of them are doing volume 2 on their own. Like, so we're tracked now, and we're still tracking data. And I don't want to get into too much of that because we're going to have some stuff here coming out. Nate's back there going like this.
Either way, there were. If it sounds like there's a lot of moving parts to this, there are. There's a ton of moving parts, and Chris is so this community that was born out of Chris perceiving this challenge of not having good resources available to his veteran community. It helped hundreds of people last year without selling anything to them.
You asked a logical question. How many veterans from your community did you help? I don't know. I don't pay attention to that. I don't care if we help one.
So here's what I'll tell you. Here's my significant.
I know. But when I look at this thing, I look at our total reach as a community, because if I have those professionals reaching that many total people, then I know that many are cared for. I don't care how many is here, how many there, where, what. That wasn't what we were ever about. All of that was an impact of, like, when you answer all of their questions the best, they demand to work with them. And that was the thing. Like, I got tired of fighting. It's like, okay, if you're going to work with them, then I have to make them do all this.
The number is not the important point. The momentum was the important point. The momentum of being able to commit to this cause, put the tools in place, see what the problems are, fixing it on the fly, and growing it to that big of a scale. Anybody who's ever tried to scale their business knows that scaling is probably scaling is the best way to destroy your business. It really is. That's the hardest part, is growing beyond just you. And you manage the scale of this thing. I am telling you, everybody in our industry, whether they like or hate what Chris is doing or whatever, he has elevated the game for doing business with veterans industry-wide. And not only are you doing it in the mortgage industry, but like you said, you've got real estate agents that are involved. You've got back-end operations processors, underwriters that understand that there is this much momentum and this much passion behind treating these folks right. And quite frankly, everybody should be treated right like that. But you have the opportunity to do this for this community that you care about passionately. And in less than 2 years, this is no small thing. This is an enormous thing. And Chris and I have these conversations all of the time. This thing outgrew him so quickly, but because of his passion and quite frankly, because of Nathan, but then you started getting all of these people that were a couple of degrees away from you that were just pulled in by this passion and by this movement that you were trying to do. And and it is scaled so fast, and it is helping so many people, and it is literally changing our entire industry and how this entire demographic of homeowners, and you're bringing a financial education that, quite frankly, everybody needs. But where you've started with this thing and where it can go is just absolutely amazing. And again, these are the things that blow me away. He's helped so many people. He has so many people involved in this. This thing is growing so fast, and it's private. Like you have to know somebody, and you'd have to know the secret handshake to get in. And yet
we decline a third of membership requests.
Man,
we've declined. That's not even the highest that we've seen as far as our monthly rate, but on average monthly, we decline a third membership rates because people don't answer questions, they don't agree to rules, or their accounts don't appear to be accurate. And then some are professionals that aren't vetted yet. We're going into vetting. Vetting, just so y'all know, vetted, it's an active term. It constitutes not only the testing and stuff, which we didn't get terribly into, which is fine. It's a lot, 17 and a half average hours to pass the testing. The initial testing.
Texting you stats.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
Nate's awesome. Let's see what they're
I'm sorry,
But not only that,
8.5 hours to pass the test for this group to be a
the initial testing to get into.
That's just one.
No, that's
right?
to get into the month training to become a moderator.
Yeah, no, but go ahead.
I'm slow. You have to.
1,825 was your loans reported number, Dustin. I underestimated that a little.
1,825 loans were reported in the last year.
Yeah, we're 2/3 are a decline. Excuse me, he corrected me. 2/3.
2/3 of people that want to join this community are told they're not good enough.
No, it's not that they're told they're not good enough. It's that they don't answer questions. Yeah. They don't follow rules. They're fake or weird accounts that don't seem verifiable, right? Or they're professionals.
Another part of this that's so fascinating, again, is because of the way that this was born, the people that surround Chris that are in sort of the leadership positions, the people that have been with you the longest and that are kind of taking the reins, they're almost carbon copies of your passion and your mission.
Some of them are probably more passionate than I am, which is a lot of what some of y'all don't like me to think about for a few minutes. Because what I'll tell you, this is for a long time has been made out to be something that it isn't. Something I told y'all it wasn't. It was never about me. It was never going to be about me. I pulled back largely because of one, I wanted to prove it wasn't, and two, I wanted everyone else to see that it wasn't that's helping, and three, I wanted them to be able to continue on without me in case something happens, right? That's the only hope that I have. What you love and want and see without you is able to grow and foster and exist, even without you, if that's the case, right? So, yeah, there's a lot of passionate people, and they're exceptionally intelligent. They have a lot of versatile experience, and they do not have an appetite for bad doers in the industry, and they don't have a tolerance for you. So, we're aggressive. We lost. Yeah, we got him. Got him. Look, he must have a sales call, I guess, huh?
Yeah. So, obviously, this is sort of in a very, very small way, kind of my journey and what I've done with my project and what I've tried to do with consumers as a whole. And it was always just me, just trying to do my thing. We're evolving now, so that I'm kind of doing what Chris says. It was never about me. It was about providing that level of service and that level of commitment to people. But then I see Chris come along, and he has this energy and these organizational skills, and he's able to create this mechanism that really just so quickly got a life of its own. You couldn't stop this thing if you wanted to. But you might be able to. You might be able to blow it up.
I gotta stop. I hadn't thought that question out. I don't want to think about that question.
But this thing, it is its own entity. It exists. It breathes. It lives, and it's growing, and it's consuming. It's consuming our industry in a very, very positive way. And I think for every person it turns towards a vetted VA perspective on how you should be doing business with a specific community, I think it's getting rid of the people that were trying to take advantage of it and trying to be sleazy.
Yeah, there's no room for an easy thing and a quick access to a valuable thing for themselves. And a lot of the people that we've run into have been angered because we're not a charity. We don't just freely do everything for freely everybody that wants to freely be taking advantage of something, right? We have standards that are very difficult and take the precious thing they don't want to give, their time. I tell everybody up front when you say, how would you stop this? I tell everybody up front, look, this thing will live and exist long after me. And unless one thing happens, this thing becomes hypocritical. It becomes the thing that I do not want. And I'll be the guy burning it to the ground. I will. I'll let all the veterans know in a way that, everyone talks about a dog whistle, know your audience. When I tell the veterans that the pop smoke in this place because it ain't what it was, they'll know what I'm saying. And I wouldn't do that because it's a valuable place unless someone or something or somehow it turns into a thing that's everything else out there, a place to get a thing cheaply and quickly and take advantage of people who, vets are taken advantage of enough, like in a lot of different places. And I'm not like some bleeding heart, whatever. Vets or do their fair share of, hey, Applebee's, it's Veterans Day. Where's my, brownie? Right? Because, vets are needy and needy people sometimes, like whatever. But they get taken advantage of a lot. And at least in one place, I know it doesn't happen. And that's cool to see.
Yeah, no, it's really hard to not go into the weeds with some of this stuff, especially some of the passion that comes behind this, Dustin. But on a very, very high level, this is something that Chris is incredibly passionate about. He loves community. He's passionate about community. This happened to be one community that he latched onto, but you've created several communities that are out of it. I think coming up next month, he's doing what's called his Vetted VA Summer Camp, where he's inviting all of the professionals that are on the professional support side of this community, helping the veterans, out to your backyard for like 4 days of zero business, shooting guns, fishing, boating, talking about campfires, just building community and everybody getting closer together, and really, quite frankly, celebrating this thing that you built. I mean, that's what it is. It's just celebrating it as a community, and reflecting. And I think it's important to reflect on this stuff. You kind of brush it off sometimes, but this is an unbelievable. This thing changes the world. This literally changes the entire world by this little tiny thought that this scrawny little 140-pound guy was so passionate about something that you've literally changed the world for hundreds. It will be thousands. It will be hundreds of thousands of people by the time this thing is done. And it's all under the and as a dirty capitalist, you can benefit from that, but that was never your goal. So the goal was first do it right. And then the reward was you get to grow a business, and it evolves into a business that makes money. So you have more resources, so you can reinvest, so that you can build the foundation of your community even stronger. And that's really the crux of what I wanted to share today is it doesn't have to be the veteran community. It could quite literally be your small town in Iowa, right? It could quite literally be your profession that you're in, or something that you're passionate about, and you can build a business around it. And that's why I wanted to call this cause marketing, even though we didn't set out to have it as a marketing strategy. It ends up being.
Everyone's afraid to say marketing because of all the dirty people that took it and abused the word. Take it back from those losers.
Yeah.
Take it back. Don't use marketing as a spear with a bunch of weight to poke people with, weirdly, because that's what most people do with marketing. They do it in the DMs. Ugh, creepy. Don't be like that, man.
Yeah, marketing
use your knowledge.
Selling.
Yeah, marketing isn't selling it. It's not solicitation. Marketing, the best people, when I think of the best marketers, that the people that, good Lord, you're going to work with somehow. They're just attracted to people because whatever nuanced, tiny thing, big thing, general thing that you're attracted to, that's a thing that you find valuable, right?
Well, Gary Vee's a good marketer.
Yeah, Gary Vee's an exceptional marketer because he has an ability to perfectly find people where their statement's coming from based off of a very short set of circumstances. Like that dude picks people apart quickly. But just a statement. We get these kind of statements all the time, and these statements get made by people like Brandy, our newest employee that was a part of our group, didn't work with the Vetted VA moderator at all, but loved the group because there was nothing like it. As soon as she heard out we were applying, she busted her tail and got in here. But this statement here is, we are officially closed. Whoever created this boob, God bless you. That's a cool thing. Like this veteran saying, God bless me because I created a Facebook group. You see that, Mimi? My Mimi's a Christian. When I do things that share good news, she appreciates it. So I get to make my Mimi proud. I get to make Roshina Woods Waller pretty happy, apparently. And, you know, we get to have a community. It's a little different. When I got out of the military, the biggest part that I missed were my brothers and sisters and the relationship and the style of communication and what wasn't said and how things didn't matter certain ways. But to have a place where that sort of a significance can really maybe exist. And I tell people, pretend like it's the real world, because it is. It's as real as you'll let it be. It's real there, man. We're helping people. We're finding people where they are, helping them and showing them how to get to the place they're trying to go without taking anything from them or charging them a toll to cross the bridge. You know, like, geez, guys, like, just help people. If you want to get where you want to go, was it Zig Ziglar? There's enough of these cliches, but help enough people get where they want to go, and you won't have to worry about where you
can
want
have
to go.
anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want.
And who cares if you don't? Like, you know, who cares if you don't help people? Because at the end of the day, you just simply need a small thing that's helpful, and you'd be surprised in life how many people that you really have that go way out of their way to help you, even with a small thing. So pay it forward, do the right thing, and then ultimately, who knows, maybe something crazy big will grow out of it if you're really good at trying to do the right thing. But it's hard. And what I'll tell you is, even though you're going to want to do the right thing, it's like when your 4-year-old comes to you with duct tape on her hair of her small of her hair of her neck, you know, it's like, ooh, daddy's not smiling because this is funny, baby, but there's really only one way to help you here. And it's going to look kind of funny, but I promise it's actually, I've tried it. It's the best way. There's another way. Mom will help you, you know, if you want to go talk to her. But, you know, if you really care about people and you want to help them, it's going to be difficult, because helping people that need help is ugly. It's messy. It's hard to communicate and understand what they want. And you have to be willing. More than anything, you have to be willing. And my greatest failure with VetaVA was that I wanted to find people that were more willing than anyone else in the room. And I failed to anticipate very quickly how many people that I have that were so willing that any misstep, any harsh word, any rougher face, whatever, the feeling that they were left with was disappointment, right? Like, what? Like, no one wants to feel like they're disappointing something. And whether they're feeling like they're disappointing me or the community or the veteran, right? Mm-hmm. The feeling that's most common that's shared that causes people to emote, moderators, is like the places where they're disappointing. Josh Lewis, great example. Awesome dude. Very smart. In the beginning, having trouble engaging. Yeah. Came up to me, looks me directly in the eye, shakes my hand. Let's pretend like you're Josh for a second. Shakes my hand. And Josh is like 8 foot taller than me. Like, hey, Josh. How's it going, Josh? Right? And so Josh shakes my hand. He starts to talk to me about VetaVA and where he's at and everything and how busy he's been. And then he gets to the part where he's talking about engagement, and somehow standing a foot in front of me, towering 8 foot over the top of me, he manages to look underneath me at the floor. Like, how do you look that low, Josh? Stop it. You know what I mean? Like that feeling, people like, just, you know, like there's a standard that everyone wants to hit for the rightest reasons. Even if they struggle to, they don't have the time to. They're busy in other places. And the feeling in the community that we have, when you see it and you've been around it, is no one wants to be in that place where you're not feeling like you're putting in everything that everyone else is, because
yeah,
you know what I mean?
I see where you're going with that. It's because it's a passion-driven cause. Everybody in there has
right where you
high
need to
expectations. And if you have any, because you're right, Josh is a highly capable person. He's one of the smartest people that I know with VA loans. But when he gets in there and he wants to be a part of that group because he believes in the cause that you're doing, but he doesn't have the time, he's racked with guilt. Like he's like,
we have firewatch, we have rotation. If they don't show up for duty, they get faces and words, and they don't like them apparently.
Yeah, there's a high amount of structure. Chris's military background, he designed the entire structure of the support side of this. Like the military, there are squads, there's a leader, there's people that they're accountable to. So you did a really fantastic job, and I think that's the only reason you were able to scale, is because you had that discipline and you knew how to create that accountability chain so that you could have that many people and you could maintain the level of quality. Because that's where that's the biggest challenge that you have of scale in anything, is getting enough good people that you can count on in the high levels so that they can manage the people that you're bringing.
Fail. I wasn't just some genius who was like, oh, I'm going to extrapolate the two, carry my Marine Corps experience over here. divide by pi. And no, man, I was a part of so many groups I saw failing for different reasons, good groups. And then I saw a few succeeding, and I tried to pick apart and figure out what let them deal with whatever problems they had.
I like what Chris said when he said he wanted to prove that this would work without him. And I think that is the true indication of when you're on the right path and when you have a worthy cause. There are probably, well, maybe not at this point, but there will be a point where you won't know the people that are joining Vetted VA. You'll never meet them. You may not ever know their names because it's going to be so big and so fast and you're going to be so far removed. But your people that are in charge, that are creating those, that are creating that, it's going to keep, this thing has a life of its own. This isn't
if they come in 10 years from
Griffith
now,
show.
It's the biggest impact they've ever had in their life. I never know them. They never know me. And that's the end of it.
And then that's
Kaiser Soze. I'm hunting, guys. I'm elk hunting. Leave me alone. Like, we all do things for different reasons. I think as capitalists, as entrepreneurs, we create companies because we see problems that we want to solve in ways that we think we can better, not because we're, arrogant or trying to be mean, because problems ought to be solved better as we move forward. Because if not, then we are getting suckier as people. And so don't be afraid of better. And if people come alongside of something you're doing and they're trying to solve problems better, don't be offended. Use it to drive you forward. I was hopeful that this company would be, at the very least, I would be an annoying enough spur to be a catalyst in the good people who should have done better sooner in their things. And that was going to be good enough for me. And then we got to the next part. It's like, okay, so now what are we going to, and it was every time, make it better, make it better, make it better, make it better, make it better. Whatever, revelation response. You realize you suck, you get better. It's daily.
So I knew this is the way this conversation was going to go. And Christopher has so absolutely awesome, but you're such a great storyteller and you're so passionate. I really hope we were able to deliver the value of this, and Christopher's example is kind of one of those things that it's hard to prop up, because if you look at it from the outside, you think that it's impossible. But it's not. It was one person that was super passionate, that saw a problem and set out to solve that problem within the context of the professional space that you were in. And you created something unbelievable that was so much bigger than yourself, that is literally changing the way that things are done in this industry. And I hope we were able to relay that story. Cause marketing, when you almost can't fail in cause marketing if you don't quit, because if you're passionate about something, and well, it has to be something passion worthy. It has to be something passion worthy, right?
I'm a character. I get it. I'm a character, and I'm all over the place. And very frankly, it's intentional. And here's why: people put out podcasts like this, and whether it's paid podcasts and really successful, which is a great model, or whether it's an informational one, people look for succinct information on how-tos. For instance, how to build a community if you're looking to market. I don't want to speak to everybody. I don't care to help everybody. I care, especially with building a community. There are a lot of you out there that want to learn how to build a community that I'm probably a little too much for, and I'm going to turn you off long before you ever get to this part. And I very much hope that was the case, and I hope you didn't make it through any of the information I was talking about. To the very few of you that hear this, who you are actually a weird community builder, you're broken uniquely, you're going to hear this. And you may hear parts of it that resonate now and parts of it that never do. If you need help, I will help you. But I will not just help you and assume. I will trust and verify who you are and what you're about. But communities need to be out there in the digital space, because the thing that separates us from the marketing systems that we're working against is our humanity and our root function. That's how we communicate, why we communicate, the rules of our coexistence mutually based on respect, liability, risk, and all of those things. So while many may see this and get a good laugh, and I'm all over the place, just understand it's a little tighter than it may seem sometimes. Other times it's not, but it does work. And if you have a mind to build community and you hear this, holler at us. Holler at Scott. He'll put you in touch with me. I'll tell you what's worked, what hasn't, what I've seen fail in other places. Because at the end of the day, if you can't build communities on Facebook or whatever, or social media or in real life or whatever else, then everyone's going to be at the behest of marketing. And the marketing things typically that are out there are usually very specific pointed spears designed to target you. And when people target you, they're generally not helping you if you think about it. Do you want to be targeted, or do you want to see some people over there on a ridge doing something, walk over, look at them from a tree line, see that, oh crap, they're cutting down firewood and carrying it to people or whatever. Like, you want to be attracted to things that you find valuable. You don't want to be targeted by things that could, right? No one wants to be. Do you want to be targeted by anything? Maybe I'm just too skeptical or ticky. Maybe it's a better. Do you want to be targeted by anything?
Nobody does.
Like something you want to be targeted by. I don't know. Like if someone's throwing $1 billion bills, I want to be targeted by that guy. Maybe. But that's a weird situation that doesn't exist. So,
Brother, that was perfect. That was a great close. Do you guys have any questions or anything that come up?
No, I think it's a good place to wrap up. Christopher Griffith can be found at vettedva.com. And if you're lucky enough to get an invite to his super secret Facebook group, you should join that.
Hey, look, if you're a professional out there, just to throw this out there too, we do have a group that helps everybody. It's called Vetted VA Professionals Only, regardless of whether you're in vetting or not. Any question you have, whatever you need, the same roles, the same place, we help out. Everybody, come to that group. We'll help.
That's Facebook group.
Yeah, Facebook group.
Awesome.
We're not exclusive. We'll help everybody. We just have places where we help certain people because of what's needing to be done. That's all.
Right.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Well,
Scott, where can people find you?
Findmywayhome.com.
You'll find him there. He's doing cool stuff. Ricardo, you got your website?
Over at ricardobueno.com.
Yeah, good stuff there. And I'm at Lighthouse Escrow. It's been a great conversation. Christopher, great meeting you. Thanks for giving us your time today. Really appreciated just everything you shared here.
thanks for letting me talk so much. Apologies again. It was a long day. Anyways, I had a great time.
Ricardo, thanks for joining us twice. Appreciate that. Thanks for showing up, buddy.
How did he end up having worse signal than us? That was all right.
All right, guys. Until next time, this has been the Marketing Trench.
Yeah.